Advisory Commission meeting. We'll start with our roll call. Position 1, Carrie Stuckey, that's me, I'm here. Shane Carden is absent today. Kate Rose.
Here.
Eric Dipzinski.
Here.
Tom Jones.
Here.
Stefania Huerta.
Here.
Vicky Biggs.
Here.
Callie Boyer.
Here.
And Eric Marshall.
Here.
Thank you. Okay, we will move on to item number 2, which is the approval of the agenda. Were there any comments or questions about the agenda, or are we ready to make a motion?
I can make a motion.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Okay.
Okay. That is approved. Next, we will move on to approval of the minutes for our meeting of March 10th, 2025. Were there any changes or questions about those?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as written.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that is approved. Next, we will move on to public comment. During this time, citizens may comment on subjects of interest not on the agenda or agenda items. To ensure comments are recorded properly, please state your name clearly. Individual comments will be limited to 3 minutes to ensure maximum participation during the time frame allotted for this item. Public comment may also be submitted online at oakharbor.gov/public comment at least 2 business days in advance of an advisory board meeting. We did receive 2 public comments online, both regarding the marina, and they are listed in the packet. Did we have anyone present that would like to make a comment today? Okay, go ahead.
Good morning. I'm Kathy Chalfant, Oak Harbor. I am on the leadership board of the Oak Harbor Garden Club, and I just wanted to share with you what was going on because this is our busiest time, and we are really doing a lot of things. So the first thing is that we have launched something called the Trex Challenge, which is collecting plastic wrap and the plastic that you can't now recycle in the city bins. So it's your Amazon packages, your wrap around toilet paper. For gardeners, it's your potting soil bags. It's amazing how many things it really is when you start to look at it. And our goal is to raise 1,000 pounds in 1 year. And if we do, we will get a Trex bench, which we will donate to a park in Oak Harbor. So right now, the center is a collection point. The Chamber of Commerce is a collection point. And Main Street Association on Pioneer Way is working with businesses there and is a collection point. So we're off to a great start. April 1st was our launch date. We have a plant sale coming up on Saturday, May 10th from 9 to noon. It is at the park between the North Whitby Middle School field and the Chamber by the pickleball courts. It is from 9 to noon. We would love to have you all come. It's really got some it's got hanging baskets, it's got perennials, it's got house plants. We do a lot of the clumps out of our garden, so it's some nice, unique plants, and so we'd love to have everyone come to our plant sale. There is no tea and tour this year, we're sorry to say. We didn't come up with enough gardens, so we will do that again next year. We have another number of people who said, I'll do it a year from now. So we are putting that off for a year. We gave out 5 grants to nonprofits and businesses to beautify some beautification projects. Those are going on. We're giving out 2 scholarships to high school seniors. So we're doing a lot, and then we've been working with Brandon and the parks. So we're going to pot the blue pots with annuals again. And we're helping with Arbor Day at the schools. And so that's what we got going on. And then, switch hats quickly, Saturday, the Oak Harbor Gary Oak Society had the dedication in Smith Park. Thank you, Carrie, for coming. And Barbara Arms came. Thank you for coming. It was, pardon me? Oh, Tom, I'm sorry. Thank you for coming. And I thought it was a lovely event. We had great weather. We gave out raffle items to people of Gary Oak things, and Gideon came and spoke. And so that also was a lovely event. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy, so much. Did we have anyone else here to make public comment?
Good morning. I'm Denise Marion, And I live just across Scenic Heights Road from the entrance to the Scenic Heights and Friend Marsh Trail. And the reason I moved to that property is because of its location, just across from Friend Marsh, so I have an abiding interest in Friend Marsh and the Scenic Heights Trail. Southwest 19th Court is a well-used pathway for bicyclists and pedestrians, dog walkers, elderly people who come down all the way from Fort Nugent Park in that neighborhood there and up Swantown Road. They cross Highway 20 there at the end of Swantown Road onto Southwest 19th Court. And from my window, the condos all face the road, so all of us see this traffic, pedestrian traffic. When they cross Scenic Heights Trail there in order to get to the Friend Marsh and Scenic Heights Trail, when they cross Scenic Heights Road, it's a problem because they're kids, they're dogs, they're elderly people, they're people on bicycles, kids on scooters. There's a bus stop there. The condos across on the other side of Scenic Heights Road have their cluster of mailboxes there. There's a bus stop there. There are delivery trucks that don't know where they're going. They pull into Scenic Heights Trail, or Southwest Court, my street, to park and turn around and figure out where they're going. There's a concentration of people who get deliveries on the. I'm saying it's a congested place. In addition, cars are accelerating from both directions on Scenic Heights. When they turn off of Highway 20, it's a downhill crest, and they're accelerating because I just turned in there. And then from the other side, there's a steep hill, and people are accelerating down the hill from the other direction. So I've talked to many of my neighbors and people who are walking up and down and across the road. It's a universal wish that we could slow the traffic and put in a crosswalk there, which would really complete that trail all the way from Fort Nugent Park to Windjammer and points beyond. So I submitted this as a written comment as well, which is probably better stated than I expressed it here, but that's what I'm here for. And it's a timely suggestion for your consideration because the days are getting longer, warmer, more people will be using that. Thank you.
Thank you, Denise. Do we have anyone else present that would like to make a public comment at this time?
Hi, my name's Kim Ford. I live on Southwest Talon Loop, and I wasn't going to speak today, but actually, Denise, I would second your concern. I live up on Talon Loop. I frequently drive down Frund on the daily, multiple times a day, taking my children to all of their things. And I can tell you that people on that Scenic Heights Road, especially coming towards 20 from out of town, it's turning from Frund onto Scenic Heights, it's frequently a scary turn. People are coming at probably higher than the speed limit speeds through that area. And my children, as well as many other children, do frequently cross down there to go down that trail and over to Windjammer Park. So it does create a safety risk. Thankfully, I'm not aware of any significant issues that have occurred yet, but we would appreciate your attention to the matter. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Kim. Do we have anyone else present that would like to speak? Okay. Seeing none, we will go ahead and move on to our discussion items. Discussion item A is a Freedom Park update.
Bob, do you want to go up to the podium just in case they do have a couple questions? I don't know if they're going to or not, but just get ready.
We're going to show you just a few pictures, but Eric, you can also jump in here, and since you were out there flagging the footprints for the fairways.
Okay. Get this over here. Go into. All right, where's the? How do I get this into a PowerPoint? There we go. Okay. There we go. Okay, so I've got a quick update on the Freedom Park walking trails and disc golf that we have been working on up there. This is a quick picture. This is just to show you what Freedom Park kind of looks like for those people that hadn't been out to the 75-acre property. It is a forested property, and Bob and Grayson have been there working to clear that out. So Eric McCabe is the golf course designer, the disc golf designer, and this was the layout that we had from him for golf course, and the golf course is in the yellow, and the walking trail, the tentative walking trail, is in red. So Bob and Grayson and I went out to try and cut in some of those trails and thin out the very vegetated material that we have. Whenever we were out there, we've used rotary head brush trimmers and chainsaws, as well as a small wheeled tracked skid steer to push debris off of. So that's a little bit of the picture here. This is kind of what we were getting into. This is out at the end of the trail, kind of what we were looking at. So this is kind of a before picture of what was there. And then this is starting the after pictures. Eric had come up and marked the left side and the right side of the fairways, and we started to try to clear that out. So these are pictures of hole number 1. We were able to clear out a lot of this under vegetation, the salmonberry, and a lot of the really just pokey sticks and debris that was in there, and clear it up so it is relatively clear to walk. We still had, a lot of the downed logs that we'd cut up and just kind of left there. So Bob and Grayson worked on that last week. I just didn't get a chance to take any pictures after that. But this is walking down the fairway. So this is about halfway down the fairway here. And then this opens up to what is going to be the green, which is right around here. That still needs to get thinned out just a little bit. But they've been able to drastically reduce the vegetation that's in there and make some pockets of ferns and salmonberries, the good beneficial undergrowth there, and remove a lot of the downed timber that is fire hazard that is a concern in the forest. So that's kind of the update. If you guys have any questions, I can do my best to answer them. And we have Bob here, who has been out in the field a little bit more than I have, and Grayson.
Perfect. Or Eric, do you want to add in anything to that?
Well, I think I want to point out a couple of things that Brandon kind of highlighted but didn't specifically say, is that what you'll notice there is all the mature and healthy trees are still there. What's being taken out is the stuff that grew up in the places that was thinned out when the property was clear cut, 35 years ago. And so having an arborist on staff is really great because he can assess trees while he's out there, while Bob's on site and Grayson with him. And then we can find how to work the plan while keeping all of those really healthy and wonderful trees in place. So when he says they're using chainsaws, they're not using chainsaws to take down healthy stuff. They're using it to cut up the larger stuff that's not going to be taken with the, basically the brush hogs and the brush trimmers that they're using. And it's really coming together nicely, and having Bob and Grayson work on this along with Brandon, it's looking really good, and we're making pretty quick progress for what we have to work with. Again, we're going off of GPS, and some of these sites are in some really thick and not very fun spots to get into. But once we get going on it, it's looking great, and the walking trails are going to be fantastic. And the walking trails are on trails that were existing again from back when this was logged. So again, none of that really great, mature, healthy stuff is being disrupted. And that's really what's exciting about putting these kinds of amenities into this park, is that we can do that while keeping all of the really great stuff and open it up so people can go and explore and experience all of that. And the pictures show some of that, but they don't show it off as well. I'm really excited to see how you all react when you can get out there and see what they're essentially these natural treasures that they're uncovering while we thin out some of the stuff that's just kind of overtaken those areas and is functioning a little bit like weed.
Yeah, it really is a nice low impact project. We're just working with kind of the natural lay of the land, and the vast majority of what we're doing is just thinning out that junk undergrowth of stinging nettle and invasive type species. You know, keeping the, like Brandon said, the good undergrowth areas and all the trees. So beautiful area. Once you get all that nasty stuff out of there, it'll be a nice trail system to go through.
Just to touch base on what Eric was saying, I kind of have a little highlight here. So this, you can see this cut here of the tree, and that down log is actually going to stay there. We don't anticipate removing this down log there. That's going to be a natural element just out in the course. And then this here, if you can see the really just the right side of this, it looks really bad. It looks really overgrown. What this is, you can see there's a pine tree right here. The top of that actually snapped off with the wind, and that's where the top of that's laying. So there's a lot of ladder fuel is what the arboriculture terminology is for just natural wildfires out there that's the stuff that we are taking down, is all that kind of debris that's leaning up, and we're just trying to knock that down and get a usable space out there.
This is very exciting. It looks like it's probably a real slow-going project, but do you have a timeline or expectations for completion on this?
A rough one, a really, really rough one. I think if we continue working on this, and Bob, please jump in here if I'm wrong. I think if we continue working on this through the summer, I think we can get the majority of this banged out this year. The trails, for sure, they're going very well. We've almost connected the existing stuff that we have out there with the new stuff that we're trying to put in. And once that happens, we anticipate we'll be able to open up those sections out there. Hole 1, Grayson ended up doing a lot of that just with time off. He was out there more by himself than I would have liked. We didn't have a true 2-person working crew out there, and I would say that hole 1 is probably a relatively decent sample of what we have out there. Whenever you get past hole 1, hole 2's going to take us a couple days. There's some really thin stuff out there that we've got to knock down, and there's some downed wood that we have to pick up. But hole 2 is going to take us hole 3, it opens back up. It gets more dense. I anticipate hole 3 being more or less like hole 1. But if we keep going out there, this time we had a better idea. We were kind of poking out there. If we can get you, Eric, to go out and lay out those left and right boundaries for the holes, I think we can make some pretty quick work out of it. I've already been discussing with Bob and Grayson some way to get your volunteers active. If we can go out and pre-cut 2 or 3 holes and then have your volunteers come in, do the handwork and removing, I think we can make pretty short work of this. I was nervous about what it looked like whenever I went out, we cut all the salmonberry down, but there was still just a ton of plant material out there that it's like, how do you get this out? The trimmers that they had, they were able to basically cut up all that small salmonberry, all those small sticks, and mulch it roughly out there. So I think that's what we're going to end up doing with all that salmonberry. We'll just mulch it in place and just leave it out there.
Then I'm working right now on getting an engineering firm to put together a simplified stormwater compliance report. Since most of what we're doing is just thinning out natural vegetation and not building too much hard surface scape, not a whole lot we need to do as far as permitting, but that is one requirement that's to be done by a professional engineer just for those, mostly for the trailhead areas that kind of are already establishing. But along the trail system, we have enough of natural water, permeable water surface to just divert any runoff that comes down those trails onto there, and we just have to show that in the report, and that shouldn't take too long. So yeah, we are hoping to have the project completed before the end of the year, and hopefully early enough that people can still enjoy it in nice weather.
Yeah, and to that end, Tom, I think the next step that really has to happen is what Brandon said, and is that I need to just go out there because I'm acting sort of like as a liaison and proxy for Eric McCabe, the designer. I just need to go out and flag what he intended to have flagged so that these guys can cut. And so they're waiting on me because I was gone last week, so I didn't get hole 2 flagged. But I'll be out there, and my goal is, is this week I hope to have, 3 holes at least flagged, maybe more. I'm just going to dedicate my free time to going out there and doing that. It's not hard to flag. It's hard to get to the places that need to be flagged because you sort of have to be willing to take the blood of it going through there. So it took me a week to heal from the last battle wounds. So I'll be out there this week, though, to put some of that in so the guys can keep moving forward.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, that map that you had, can you email that out, just for reference?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, with that, we will move on to item B, Girl Scout building update.
All right, so we were approached by the Girl Scouts of Western Washington. I was contacted by them about a year ago. We had some conversations leading up to the expiration of the lease agreement for the building. It's generally located at Neal Park, and the lease agreement, which was put together in 2019, expired at the end of last year. We wanted to see if the Girl Scouts had any changes they wanted before the renewal of the agreement. And we did start discussions with them. They would like to relinquish themselves of that building. We've been a pretty good partner with them for a very long time, about 70 years. The building was put in back in 1956. There was property dedicated at Neal Park for a building. I'm still getting some history put together. There's a lot that we're starting to learn as we have these discussions, and people kind of come out of the woodworks to update us. From my understanding, the building was actually built by some of the service groups in the area, and was offered up to various youth organizations that would like to program out of it. And the Girl Scouts were one of the first ones to do that, and eventually it just kind of became their permanent home. So Girl Scouts of Western Washington are the oversight body of local Girl Scout troops who operate under their authority. And we gave council a little update at the last workshop, and I'll share some of that information with you today. We had some statistics submitted by Girl Scouts of Western Washington. Youth members on Whidbey is about 117, and with seven troops within Oak Harbor, and about 65 youth members in Oak Harbor. We have There we go. We have a parking lot there next to the building. We did an assessment of the building. Overall, the building's in good condition. They had a few updates to some of their systems last year. We did find that there's some damaged carpet that might need to be replaced. The roof really is kind of at the end of its life. That might need to be replaced in the future. If we were to utilize the building long-term for public use, we'd probably want to replace that, which has a cost of about $30,000. I feel like if the city were to take on the building, we would just include any improvements of that with park renovation plans, and probably hold off on investing too much into it until we know what we wanted to do there. As long as there's not anything safety-wise or anything that would affect use of the building, we would put minimal maintenance into it until we can do a full renovation. There's a couple different things we could do with it, but right now, the intent is the Girl Scouts would like to donate the building to the city. In the absence of renewal of that agreement that's done in 2019, the options are that the city can have the Girl Scouts remove the building at their cost, or the city can buy the building at market value. Since neither of those are really cost options that I think either organization wants to do, this was the Girl Scouts' suggestion. Our staff also did a walkthrough of it, looking at, is there potential value to the city in owning this building? I don't really have a lot of interest in taking on the maintenance costs just for the Girl Scouts to utilize the building. So if the city were to take it on, what's the benefit to the city? It does have two main usable programming spaces. They are roughly about 800 square feet or so each. And the Girl Scouts have a couple days a week that they utilize the building for their troop meetings. The building would be free, the rest of the time, and on some weekends for some recreation programming. We could do possibly some life enrichment programs in that building. It's a fairly low roof. We wouldn't be able to do anything too active like fitness classes, but definitely like art classes or things like that could happen there. There is also some storage capacity there, which we could store some sports equipment, which right now takes up a good portion of my office right now. So the storage and just being able to open up the building for recreation program, and also lease it out or rent it out to other organizations that might be looking for a space. We have very few options for meeting spaces in the community. This is one that now can be opened up as a potential option. I don't really have yet an idea of what that revenue might be. They didn't rent it out very often to other groups. It was rented out now and then, but they weren't really actively marketing it or really trying to utilize that as a rental revenue source. The Girl Scouts have been trying to relinquish themselves of the building for quite a while, from what I understand from the local troops. Honestly, I'm a little indifferent about it. It's not a high priority for us. We haven't yet put budget plans or, really had a discussion about renovation of Neal Park on our subcommittee agendas yet. So I don't have any future plans for that area yet. Our legal team feels like it would make sense for the city to own the improvements on the city property. We have a few instances of that where other organizations have built facilities on city property, and we have these different lease agreement options with them, and they tend to be fairly messy. So if we are to do something future improvement wise, it would make sense and probably benefit to the city to own that. Outside of the little bit of use, it's not a huge benefit, but I think it does make sense. I don't have a personal recommendation necessarily for council. I'll let them decide whether they feel it's a benefit to the city to own that or not. We can make park improvements without that space or not. But if the Girl Scouts of Western Washington really are ready to kind of wash their hands of that, I think there is value in being a good partner to the local troops and being able to keep a space for them to meet for the foreseeable future as well. So just some considerations. But there are costs to it. They're not very high. The Girl Scouts of Western Washington did say that their facility costs were about a little under $4,000 for utilities and about $3,500 for facility maintenance per year. The local troops dispute that a little bit. They're pretty skeptical that they put in that much money into maintenance, and they don't think they use the building enough to really have utility costs that high. But we can verify some of that. But that's what was submitted to us. The replacement of the carpet would cost us about $5,000 or so, and then again the roof replacement would be about $30,000 or so. Neither are super pressing, but something that if we were to keep using it in the same condition, you know, for the foreseeable future, several years out, we'll probably want to look at doing that. It's not high enough that it's too much of a concern. In fact, it's below what would be a capital expenditure in our budget. It would just be added into our operational budget. We probably could even cover it in our operational. I can think of other ways that Brandon would like to spend $30,000. But I think we could forestall it enough that we could just add it in as a decision package to the next budget cycle and let council make that decision when we bring them the next budget. So the donation agreement transfers the deed to the city, and then we have a license agreement with the Girl Scouts for the local troops to use the building non-exclusively over the next 5 years if they need. But the intent is to eventually have them transition to either another space, or we may decide to make improvements to that building and continue a lease agreement with them in that space as well. So we did bring this to council. I think they had mixed thoughts on it as well. For my feelings about it, I'd love to hear your guys' feelings about it. We did send out a notice, kind of a public notice that these were in discussions. The Girl Scouts coordinated with us on that. They wanted to make sure that the information all came out together, just so that everyone all had the information at the same time and no one was shocked that we were going to have these discussions. We're not trying to take away the building or anything like that. The Girl Scouts just would like the city to consider partnering with them and taking it on, since the city owns the land. Any questions that you have? And I would ask at the end for a motion of recommendation to council. We'll bring this to council tomorrow for their consideration, or whether they want to accept the donation agreement as presented and enter into that lease agreement or not, and we'll leave it to them, but I'm sure they'd like to hear your thoughts.
I'm curious, if the city owns it, what is the city required to do in order to meet standards for code, like fire suppression and all those stuff? If it's going to be a meeting place, is there an occupancy amount? And how does that, what are those costs going to be? Like, what are the immediate things that we must do? Because I know that I've been in that building. I know there's some stuff that's not to code. Right now, off the top of my head, just in my specialty. But also, I'm concerned about what the city actually has to do in order to make it meet city standards.
Well, for the use of the building is to code from our inspections. So, if there's any additional, like, fire suppression, a lot of it kind of depends on what type of activities we do there. But if they're going to continue to just use it for, little group meeting spaces and storage, there really isn't any additional cost. If we were to do other activities, we'd want to consider improvements to that. But we would do that as part of a budget cycle. And depending on what we do, we get estimates at that time. I have no idea what improvements we would have to make if we were to up the capacity limit on it yet. But
I was just curious if we're going to advertise it, for rentals for different groups, or how might we have to shape and narrow and or target that in order to make sure we stay then within proper restrictions. I guess I'm concerned about the value there, and if we're going to hit some threshold which is going to actually limit our ability to offer it to certain groups. These are
No,
things I'm
if-
not aware of, so I'm
No, if
asking
we were
the
doing
question.
rentals, we would keep it at the current occupancy. If we were to up it, we'd have to remove some walls and kind of change the configuration of it, so it'd be for a future improvement.
My second question then would be to Councilmember Marshall. I'm curious what your thoughts are on that. I mean, knowing that you've had some conversation at council, I'd love to hear from you.
Thank you, Eric. I support the idea of the city owning the building and having it, if Brian feels a need for the storage and such. The issue I have with it is the lease agreement at $1 a year. It is not in line with all the other cost recovery stuff that we've just done with the other clubs. Admittedly, they say it's almost $4,000 for utilities and then maintenance. We have improvement costs. They're gonna, per the agreement, would be using it 6 hours a month, year round, 9 hours a week, September through July, for $1. And we're paying the utility costs, we're paying the maintenance, we're paying all of that. And that's just not in line with the cost recovery that we've done with all other organizations, throughout town. And so, I think that portion of the agreement needs to be reworked where they're paying the fair share that we've required every other organization to do. And so that's where I really have the most issue with this is that $1 a year agreement.
I'm struggling to decide whether this is an asset or a liability. That's what I can't get my mind around right now. I'm also very curious to know what the cost would be just to knock it down, to demo it. I know that was an option. I know, knocking stuff down isn't necessarily in everybody's interest when you have something that's standing, but also we've had conversations about how we want our parks to look, what we want these facilities to look like, where we want to spend our money. We know, as you said, there's a lot of other ways that would be more, I think, impactful for the community to spend $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 that would help a greater majority of people enjoy recreation or begin to experience some different opportunities in recreation. I'm really torn on that. Personally, I like to help individuals and do solids to community organizations that do well, but I'm not speaking as a person here, speaking as behalf of the city, and I don't know if that's the way we want to operate, I guess.
One of the questions that came up at the council meeting is there asbestos in that building? And that in our most recent council packet, it says that a lab report was done and there is asbestos in some of the flooring materials, which does increase the cost. If the city were to take on that burden of demolishing the building, then that's on us to deal with that asbestos abatement, and that's a significant cost then.
I'm kind of neutral on this as well. I think if we have to dream up a usage for it, I would tend to stay away. I think the only thing I can think of right now, storage does cost. Storage does have value. But on the other hand, storage also has the ability to create junk. And I guess if we have to dream up a use for it, I can't see a real value. If we come up with one, fine. But
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that, Tom. I don't like inventing reasons in order to take on things that cost money. I think that's sort of a bad proposition, right? If there was need that required, then the money being spent makes sense. But now we're just sitting here with this opportunity of somebody who wants to get rid of something. It's really hard. I wouldn't use it. If we do take it on, I wouldn't want to see it for really anything other than storage. I think what Councilmember Marshall is saying in regards to the cost and the cost recovery model, I think there has to be some way to bring it in line. Just because it's not athletics doesn't mean if it falls in recreation. And we have a broad definition of recreation with all of the stuff that we're doing at the center. Right, we've defined recreation in much wider terms than athletics. And I like the idea of being as equitable as possible, especially when it's not a donation that is like pure asset. It's a donation that has a lot of strings and there's financial entanglements there and a burden. If it was, giving a sweetheart deal because we're inheriting something that requires very little of us but gives us great gain, then that makes sense to me because we're focusing, that's a barter. And so a low cost makes sense. But this isn't necessarily that kind of trade.
I'll just speak real quickly to the lease agreement. We did have a discussion about what that would be for a lease back of the building. The Girl Scouts asked that the value of the building, the $54,660, be considered as value to that lease back option, and that's what our legal and them came up with. If council decides that they would like to have additional terms in that, we can bring that back to them as well.
Did you have a question? I do. Okay. Would you go up to the podium, please? Thank you.
I agree if we don't have a use for the building already in mind, then probably it's not a good idea. My question is actually for Callie Boyer as the student representative. When I saw the presentation, I thought, boy, this would be great. I remember when I was a preteen, especially a bit of teenager, I like to have what adults would call a third place. And for teens, it's a third place for teens where they could go with some supervision, but they could relax and just do whatever. I don't know, because I'm not familiar, there may already be plenty of that offered here in Oak Harbor, and so I'm just asking that question, particularly to Callie, if you think that might be a value.
Yeah, we don't really have any a place like that, but from the people I'm around, I feel like they wouldn't really have an interest in doing something like that. Just from what I see, I feel like people wouldn't really have an interest in doing something like that. So, yeah.
I can speak to that as well. So the Boys and Girls Club have a teen club space, and it's pretty well used. They're usually pretty packed in the evening times with their camps and programs and that space as well. That was one of the uses that was proposed by our recreation division. So Liz suggested a space for summer camps, seasonal afternoon and weekend programs, a teen club space, and then storage of recreation supplies and equipment would be potential uses of the building.
I'm going to go back to something I say, it feels like every other meeting, but in absence of a master plan, acquiring facilities, extra things, extra costs, it's really difficult. We don't have a vision for said thing. We're not really sure where we're going with some of this stuff. Like you said before, we don't necessarily have a great plan for that park yet. We have it, and we know that we need to do something with it, but it hasn't come up on agenda because we've had other things we're trying to activate. Freedom Park and a variety of other things, the trail at Coochie Park, a lot of other stuff we've been doing. And so I'm really hesitant to add something when we don't know how we want to spend and budget the resources to the things that we have yet, and knowing that we don't have, that we're so far behind, in recreation, and we're working really hard and we're making a lot of great changes and they're showing up. I don't want to put us in another place where we have another thing that we have to do so we can't do the strategic things that we really want to do to improve recreation for everybody who would come to Oak Harbor and use it. We've got a lot of things in the air right now, from pickleball to Freedom Park, to accessible playground, adaptive playground, all that stuff. And these are really, really good attractions for the community. They're really great things. This building is not. I wouldn't use that same adjective to describe this building, nor that park yet. In the future, I think we can. We'll be able to say that that's a great park, but we're just not there.
We discussed this a little bit in our Parks and Playgrounds subcommittee, and we kind of landed on the same thing, is we're kind of torn. It's kind of a shame to tear it down, but in the condition that it's in, I don't know what its use really would be other than storage. I wouldn't really want to advertise it as a rental space the way that it is right now. In the future, if we had more recreation programs for youth and kids and stuff like that, it'd be kind of nice to have like a center for geared more towards those programs, and then the existing center would be continue to run as more of a senior center. But we're not there right now, and I don't know how long we want to wait and how much we want to invest in something that may or may not be needed in the future. So I'm not sure what our recommendation would be at this point in time.
I will just say, and I hear what you're saying, and I agree, it's not the opportune time to really decide on this in our overall planning efforts. But it's a decision of opportunity because of the lease agreement expiring. We have an opportunity to make a low to no cost decision on what's going to happen with this building. In the future, we might not have that option, and either we need to buy it at full value if we want to redevelop that space, or that burden is going to be put on the Girl Scouts to remove that building.
If we did acquire it and used it for nothing but storage for the time being, what cost would that be to us? Like, what would we have any costs maintaining it, or it's just a storage space
I don't
for
think the
now?
cost would be much different from doing programming. The lease agreement, still requires us to let them use the building during certain times. But, whether they're doing that or storage, it's still very minimal utility costs just to keep the building, heated and functioning, and whatever little maintenance costs there are. If there was a major failure or major water penetration where the roof would have to be replaced, then that's a one-time cost we would have to just absorb within the budget.
Okay.
So there's no way to get out of the lease agreement?
Well, we can propose that. The original proposal was a one-year lease agreement to give them time to find other accommodations. They asked to extend that to 5 years. So we do have language in there, if we come up with plans, we can work with them and shorten that. We'd obviously want to do that in good faith, with good communication, though. But this is what they've asked for, so we're presenting it to council.
So I
Since
think-
it's their proposal.
I think if I had a recommendation, it would certainly be conditional. Like, if it's in the wisdom of council to acquire this building, then I would like to see the lease agreement go to 1 year and then have it be used for storage for the growing recreation activities. A lot of the stuff that is being done over there, we're acquiring new gear. We're acquiring new things for some of these, whether it's the archery stuff, whether it's going to be the floor hockey stuff, it's going to require equipment. And being right down the street, it might be a very convenient place in order to store that stuff. But I could, in my limited wisdom, I think that's what makes the most sense of that building. Give them a year to find a new place and then convert it to storage for the growing needs that we have until we're able to do something for a recreation center, until we get through this feasibility study and move towards that. And that's going to be way down the road. But this will give us some flexibility to continue to grow those activities and have places to put the stuff, so we're not filling up rooms and overflowing rooms and centers and offices and making everything, while we have it now, making everything sort of look, well, like a garage sale. We can still make these rooms very attractive and very useful, and they're going to be activated then, and it justifies the rent that we're asking for people when they use them, so they're not meeting in semi-storage spaces as these other programs that we have grow. So that would be my sort of conditional recommendation. I apologize for the length of that. Being concise has never been my strong suit.
Vicky or Stefania or Kate, did you have any comments or thoughts?
Well, I think that we should keep it for storage. Question that I keep going back to, and this is more of a history, is somebody else built it. Was it on city property at that point?
Yes.
So it was a park at that point. How did the Girl Scouts, they said they wanted to utilize it, but do they actually own it?
Yeah, so in 2019, a lease agreement was entered into between the city of Oak Harbor and the Girl Scouts of Western Washington, stating that the land belongs to the city and the building is owned by Girl Scouts of Western Washington. So I think it was very muddy before then, with like service groups having built this, and then the city had sort of dedicated, land for this purpose. I don't think there was a lot of connecting documentation on who was owning what. So I think to clarify that and just establish it legally, the city created this agreement in 2019 that laid that out. Girl Scouts, you own the building, we own the land. And we will do this land lease agreement with you, and that lease agreement has now expired.
I have a question.
If the Girl Scouts pull out, does it default to the city? Does the building default to the city?
No, so like I said, there's two options. Either the city can buy the building at market value, or the city can require the Girl Scouts to remove the building.
I have a question. And forgive me if you already spoke about this. So the Girl Scouts, are they actively searching for a new location? Do they want the city's partnership so that way there can be maintenance done to the building because they're not able to do it? Or what is their viewpoint on all of this?
Yeah, so I spoke to a few of them. They would like to stay in the building if possible. The Girl Scouts of Western Washington have been trying to get out of this building for a while, so they've been trying to stay under the radar as the Girl Scouts kind of get out of the business of owning buildings. They're putting their efforts and their budget more into camps and not local troop buildings. They're asking local troops to figure out their own accommodations. I did learn from them that they are not allowed to meet in like leaders' homes, so it would have to be a public space like a church or a community service group building or something like that, community center or whatever. They would be very happy to have the city, take ownership of that. They don't get a lot of communication with their parent organization, Girl Scouts of Western Washington, so they feel there'd be a little more collaborative effort there on how the building's used, or fundraising for any improvements or different things like that. I did ask them to come and give some public comment tomorrow to council, just so their voice is heard, and so the ones that are currently using the building, and and the lease agreement would affect them.
Thank you.
I was just going to say that I agree that with Eric that, the 1 year, let us figure out what we want to do, let them figure out what they want to do, I think is in everybody's best interest right now. But I would like to see how much it would cost to take down the building, because that also needs to be in consideration when we're discussing this with them. If we say, okay, no, it's your building, but it's our park, so you need to take down the building. What is that on them versus us taking over the building?
Brian, in that 2019 lease, is there any exchange of funds for using the city property?
I don't believe so. Let me look real quick for you here.
So that would be my argument for the $55,000 assessed value of that property in exchange for the dollar. I mean, we are now charging youth organizations $100 a month just to have a Conex box on city property. We've allowed them to have this building on city property free of charge for 50 plus years. They've more than gotten their value out of that lease agreement. The other concern that I would have about using the building strictly for storage is the amount that it's going to cost us to replace that roof. I mean, that roof is at end of life, and we're looking at $30,000 to $35,000 for a roof replacement. You can do far less cheaper storage for $30,000, $35,000. I mean, you can buy a Conex box for $3,000, right? So, to say that that's our highest and best use of that property, I would disagree at that price tag for sure. So.
Kate, did you have any comment?
Well, could I say one thing real quick in response to that? I don't think we should hold up Connex boxes as the comparative standard. I think we want to sort of move away from that. That's why I didn't say that before, but your point is valid. I mean, that there are cheaper options for sure.
Kate, did you have anything to add?
I don't have anything pertinent to add to this, and I have a lot of construction going on here, so I'm going to take a listen position.
Okay. So at this time, do we have a recommendation that we want to make? I feel like there's still a lot of question marks.
I don't really want to make a recommendation. I don't know if, yeah, I think there's too many variables, there's too many unknowns. I think we would need a little bit more information to make a recommendation that we all feel comfortable standing behind. So I think it's in the best interest of us in wisdom to pass on making a recommendation.
So, okay, I was just gonna say, if we don't make a recommendation, are they still just using the building without a lease? Is that?
I think it would go to council's decision then, correct?
Yeah.
If I had to make a recommendation, it would be thanks, but no thanks.
Say that again, Tom? I didn't catch it.
If I had to make a recommendation, it would be thank you, but no thank you.
And if somebody was forcing me to make a recommendation, I would go the same as Tom. If I had to make one, but I don't feel like I do, so that's why I want to pass and defer.
So Brian, can we just defer to council at this point?
That's what I put in my staff report.
Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments on that item? Okay, I'm not seeing any, so let's go ahead and move on to subcommittee updates. Who wants to go first?
We can go first, or I can go first. I was the only one able to attend, so we spent most of our energy talking about Freedom Park. However, we did have a quick conversation about pickleball. We're waiting on some information in regards to staging the building or kind of seeing, again, estimates on whether or not, or what 4 courts versus 8 courts might be, simply because there's questions about grant funding, some grants we hadn't got, and then what are going to be the status of grant availability with the political landscape that's going on right now and what's happening with grant availability. So we're waiting for Dawn to provide some of that information so that we can have some better direction and clarity as far as what it might look like, what costs would be, and how we might be able to finance this project.
So his 100% design was supposed to include construction estimates for 8 courts and 4 courts, so we didn't get that?
I think we're at like 95%. Brian might have a better percentage number.
No, but I mean as far as the cost estimate is concerned, that piece of it.
Brian, do you have information on that?
The cost of what?
Well, part of the design was to include his cost estimation for construction. At least that's my understanding.
Yeah.
Did he do that?
Yeah, they're working on that. We don't have that number yet. They'll have that with their final report and designs at the 100%.
And that should be shortly, right? We were expecting that any
Yeah.
day?
Yep.
Okay. And so then we spent the rest of our time kind of talking about Freedom Park. You got some of that update, but we kind of decided how we were going to break down the work, what we wanted to do, how it was going to look for access trails, how we wanted to provide a sample. Hole 1 is essentially you call that a pilot program, even though it will be permanent, because there's a lot of unknowns, just even regarding those involved in the permitting process, as far as what this looks like, so we can dial in our permits to have it as accurate as possible. And the trail system as well, understanding kind of what was being cleared, what wasn't being cleared. So we've cut in, or the guys have cut in some of the trail. We've worked on that first disc golf hole, and what it's creating for us is an ability to present a very accurate visual of what this project looks like, so that everybody can have their imagination shaped in the correct way in order to make sure that we're most efficient with our work. What we noticed in some of our previous meetings is we weren't sure where the permitting needed to go because people were imagining a different, when they heard disc golf fairway, they were thinking things like a golf fairway. And then they were concerned that grass was going to be planted, and we were going from forest to pasture land, which you saw in the pictures, it's still forest. And so making sure that we understood what measurements were like. Excuse me. The designer had like, this will be 40 feet wide, and they were thinking a 40-foot wide cleared swath, but actually that's 40 feet of airspace, you know, because we're talking about flying objects. So what that looks like, and you saw there was 40 feet in that picture, but there were mature hemlocks in the middle. There were some fir saplings that were growing up along the side. There was native species. There was fern. There was salal. Obviously, not the same as clearing a swath and planting grass, right? Which isn't in the plan. So we spent a lot of energy there. We had a site visit after our meeting. I went out there with Bob and Grayson, and we began to, you know, shape that park to get work done on it, and again, to make this transition from unused, unactivated land to something activated and open for a variety of use, and make that more seamless. And that's really exciting. And that's where we spent the majority of our energy. And again, we had a few things where we wanted some more accountability from the designer as far as help shaping that, and we were able to flesh out that plan with a few calls and emails. And now we've moved forward, and you saw the visual update of that. I think that's pretty much it for our subcommittee meeting. Brian, did I miss anything that you highlighted?
Oh, I think that pretty well covers it.
First time I got them all. Perfect. I'm learning. Thanks, Brian.
At our Parks and Playgrounds subcommittee meeting, we discussed the Girl Scout building for a good chunk of it, I suppose. And then we discussed Arbor Day, the Arbor Day event that's coming up. Brian did had met with the school district along with Vicki. Vicki might be able to talk about that a little bit. And then we also discussed Brian was going to be working on the RFP for the inclusive playground. He can maybe give us the status on that. And then we're still looking for a date for the joint workshop with council, as far as I know. Brian may have updated information, but Vicki, did you want to add anything?
I'll just add that I went to 4 of the 5 elementary schools for the Arbor Day celebration that's going to be happening on the 25th. Thank you to the Oak Harbor Garden Club for putting together all the packets for all the kids. That's quite an undertaking, but all the schools are very excited to have this. Typically, the last few years, it's just been highlighting one school and having an event, so this is the first time they're doing it at all the schools. They're also going to be planting trees at all the schools, and it's very interesting to talk to the principals about where they want it to be. They're envisioning, you know, what they want, and if this continues, if it goes well, they're hoping to do it every year. So one school was like, well, then let's just do 2 trees, because if we do this every year, we might have a whole forest, you know, on grounds. And then one school wants apple trees so that they can kind of show the progress with, you know, here's the tree, here's the, you know, the blossom, here's the apple. We turn the apple into applesauce, you know, and have this whole talk about healthy foods. So it was a lot of fun. All the schools are very excited about it. So if anybody wants to volunteer to help out, I know all the schools do need a couple more people to kind of help out. Just guide the kids from one area to another, but it should be a really fun day.
Okay, for our Programs and Events Subcommittee, we discussed the Pirates and Mermaids events that's going to be coming up this summer. I believe it's the end of June, the last Saturday in June this year instead of in July. And so Liz and Craig were still kind of brainstorming ideas for the different stations, and we were kind of discussing that a little bit, and we will want volunteers, or they will want volunteers for that event as well, but they will send out more information closer to the date. And then we also were briefly discussing the Culture Fest coming up on May 2nd, the parade. Everyone is welcome to join Parks and Recreation in that parade. We will be decorating the vehicles the day before. So if anyone would like to help out with that, you're welcome to do that also. That will be likely at the parking lot here at City Hall. Aside from that, Stefania, did I miss anything?
No, I think you hit it all.
Okay. All right. So with that, we will move on to member comments. Does anyone have any comments at this time? Oh, I'm sorry. Parks and Recreation Director updates.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, Arbor Day on next Friday, April 25th, with the 5 schools. We do have a volunteer sign-up that's going out. The schools are responsible for getting volunteers, but we are trying to get some to help supplement if needed, just to fill in the cracks. So if you're available that day, you can expect probably between lunchtime and 3 o'clock is when most of them are being scheduled for. Sign up for that volunteer opportunity. We are moving forward with planning for a new community garden at Holland Gardens, as we've discussed with the commission. Monica Kays and Aaron Nealon with the garden club will be at the subcommittee meeting next week, and we'll kind of get the plans rolling for that a little more, and we'll bring it back to the commission. The activity guide is now out, and registration is open for all programs, including our summer camps. The Parks and Recreation Department is co-sponsoring the Chamber Luncheon this Thursday at 11:30. We'll be giving a brief 5-minute presentation update on what we're offering and projects and sponsorship opportunities. If you'd like to attend that, let me know. And I think that's all I have for today.
Any questions? Kate, are you able to mute? I think we're getting some background noise.
Sorry, I thought.
There we go, thank you. Okay, so then we will move on to member comments. Does anyone have any comments at this time? Yep.
I just want to go ahead and keep the conversation of the softball field open and alive. I've seen both the city and the North Whidbey Little League board members out there working on the field, which has been wonderful. We had our first game last week, and the dugouts, I can say cosmetically, but more importantly, functionality-wise, it's just not there. The benches were completely cracked, and the girls had to sit on their gloves or a hoodie to make sure they didn't get a splinter in their tukish. So that was exciting. And the fence is actually very weak to where you can't even lean on it, and it just was a ball of anxiety for a lot of the athletes. So I wanted to just keep that conversation alive to see realistically, timeline-wise, when and where, all the things, all the questions. So, yeah.
Yeah, we're still waiting on the school district to see if they want to do, at least, right now, we don't have an agreement with them for volunteer park.
Well, this is VP, I want to say 1, VP 3. Sorry, thank you. Coach Kim and Coach Jess have been out there too, like, I can't even tell you. So it's a VP 3, which I believe is city-owned property.
The south.
Yes, sir. Yeah, the big dirt field. Yeah. That's the main word that comes to mind too, is safety. And even, as interesting as it may sound, during the game, because we have 15 girls packed into such a tight space, unable to sit, unable to really focus on the game, and that plays into how they're playing during the game. So the athletes are also having the mental safety shook a little bit on top of a possible splinter in their tukish.
So we're really talking about if we span the middle of the fence with a fence support, okay, you're 1.5 inch galvanized with a fence support, and we got a couple of lengths of pressure treated. I mean, it's a 2-hour project, 3-hour project, you know, just for a temporary fix. You know, we're talking about, I think, probably if we had 4 12-foot 2x6s for each dugout and a couple of spans, and we're not talking about a large investment to get that done, at least temporarily. Whether that comes from the city or comes from a volunteer donation or private donation, something should probably be handled that way, at least temporarily, until we have a bigger plan, since we own that field.
And we have photos also that, I don't know if they've been submitted, but they can be submitted to just give a bigger idea of how it looks. And the photos really, I mean, they speak volumes just in the photos alone. So you can imagine, you know, live what they look like.
Yeah, I was out there about a month ago with a parent who wanted to show me some of those things. It doesn't look like it's too much to get a temporary benefit.
Brian, is there a way we could get on that quickly?
Yeah, I will get
And-
Brandon on it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I have a member comment. As the president of the Whidbey Island Disc Golf Club, you know, we have obviously a very high interest in Freedom Park. And one of the things that the club has discussed and would like to do for Freedom Park is when they run events there, they want to allow with people with their entry fees to sponsor a sapling. So because that park was pretty deforested, you know, 30-something years ago when it was going to be turned into an industrial park, and then there was a moratorium placed on that land and all the stuff that led to today, there's not as many mature native species as we'd like. And so one of the things that they asked me to bring up, and I'm bringing up now, is that that's one of the things that we would really like to do. So as we clear out a lot of that underbrush, we're going to create spaces for then, and working with Bob, you know, Bob's aware of this as well, we'll be able to bring back some more trees in there. So for future generations, we'll start, you know, taking that forest and actually caring for it and repopulating the forest with tree canopy, which is exciting. And it also leads to possibility for Arbor Day as well. Once the students fill up every place that they can plant in all the schools, now we can participate in, you know, foresting a forest or reforesting a forest, and that's pretty exciting. So I just wanted to let the community kind of know about that desire to do that initiative. And that's going to be stuff that can be done at zero cost to the city and paid for by the users, which is how we need to do, I think, is a good model for how we need to improve a lot of these parks that we're having, you know, in order to catch up.
Any other comments, member comments? Kate, did you have a comment? Okay. All right, well, seeing nothing else, let's move on to determination of future agenda items. Do we have anything at this time?
I'm hoping by next meeting we'll have that completion plan from Dawn for pickleball, so hopefully we can discuss that here and have a strategy for figuring out either how we're going, well, for funding either way, and revisit that conversation. And maybe make recommendations on how we should approach that, knowing that our funding has changed or possibly has changed.
Brian, have you had a chance to do the RFP for the playground yet or not yet?
No, I've been out for the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So I just got back.
Okay, that's
on-
fine.
On Saturday, so yeah, we'll pick that back up, and we're trying to get it on a council agenda. Admin had us push it back, so maybe we can get it back in there in June. We'll shoot for, so we can share it with you guys where we're at with it on maybe the next meeting. We might be able to throw that up there.
Okay, thanks.
And just looking back, it looks like Don Campbell with RWD was on site last week at Fort Nugent, just to finish up some things with that. So yeah, I'll check it with them and see if we'll have a submittal of the deliverables for the next meeting.
I don't know if this is an agenda item or not, but I would like to maybe, can we have some conversation about master plan? I know that's on the schedule for this year, but we've got a lot of things going on, and we're looking at, you know, a lot of different things, and a lot of different RFPs are out there. But knowing that we keep having things come up, I think it might be time to talk about that and building a committee to begin doing that. Or at least starting the creating of casting a vision, and which will be informed by all of these different RFPs and, things that we have going on.
What about the feasibility study for the recreation center? Is that something we could address next month?
Yeah, so our central services manager, Sandra Place, has the RFP ready to go out. We wanted to have it, just give it a review by our committee one last time before we send that. So try and get that done this week, and hopefully we can get it sent out either this week or next.
Would it be appropriate to put the Scenic Heights Trail Connector on the agenda, or is that something that needs to have a committee or whoever talk about? I mean, I don't even know if this is the right place to do that.
Brian, I'm wondering if that would be something to bring to city council.
Yeah, it's more of a public works project.
Okay.
When you're talking about reducing speeds and adding crosswalks, that's a public works project.
Sure.
And so, but it is something that I've made note of, and we'll contact our public works department about starting that conversation. So,
It might benefit that, like, the facilities subcommittee actually talks about the notion of, like, these community trails, or maybe that's parks, I'm not sure which, but actually having an idea of thinking about, these connector trails that tie our parks in together.
Yeah. So
I'm not sure which subcommittee should handle that, but I think that might be advantageous, because it's certainly a better way to have these conversations about public safety if we're talking about these park connector kind of urban trail network.
Yeah, so our
It gives a
development
framework.
services are working on the active transportation plan, which talks about commuter trails and safety with sidewalks and some of these areas where people are using multimodal forms of transportation, pedestrian and bikes and different things like that. So, I'll connect with CAC also, who's heading that up, and bring that up. They might already have some plans around it, though. We really did go through with a fine-tooth comb and identify, like, where are the trouble areas, where are we seeing pedestrians conflict with vehicle traffic, and so in fact, if you want to give me your contact information, I'll check in with him and see what the plan is from the active transportation plan for that area, and see if they already have something in there, and can share that with you.
Go ahead.
one thing I'd like to see brought back for future discussion is adding lights to Fort Nugent. Being able to activate that space in the evening time in the fall, so our kids can play longer later, and not have to scramble for field space for soccer and football and such.
So I have I've been in talks with two different companies. One is Pro Lighting Accessories, and the other is right here. Tech Light Sports Lighting, on getting some cost quotes for that. They cover both the football field and the pickleball courts. It's kind of bleed overlighting of that. So that's something we're trying to get numbers around, and then we'll have some discussion on it.
Any other items at this time? Okay,